Hello and welcome to the vMax video tutorial. In this episode we're going to get a very high level look at how vMax is set up. So we want to give you this sort of broad overview before we start getting into the nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty of how things are set up. We just want to make sure you understand the very high level concepts for the installation. And then in future videos we're going to actually go ahead and install vMax. So the thing to know about vMax is that it runs on two different programs. One is called OpenSim, and that's seen on the left as a bunch of text. You see white text on a black background, and that's called the server. It's the back end. It's everything under the hood, the technical bits that make the whole vMax project work. And on the right is a part you're more familiar with if you've been watching the previous videos, and this is called Firestorm. Firestorm is basically the client. It's the part that plugs into the OpenSim so that you're able to get the visuals, walk around in the virtual world, see and hear the different assets that are present and available. Now there's a bunch of ways you can set this up, and they go from very simple to more complex. What we're looking at right now is one computer running two programs. So you just basically one computer. I got it set up here. You can see the computers under the desk, and on the screen we have two different programs. The left, as mentioned, is OpenSim, and it's talking to the right, which is Firestorm. And you don't necessarily have to have these lined up. There's no arrow. The little green arrow just describes the fact that these two programs, which are residing on the same computer, they're just talking to each other in order to do the work that they need to do. Okay? And sometimes, I can actually literally edit this. I might actually run it so that it looks like this, and I've got the Firestorm up front and OpenSim's running in the background, literally in the background of my screen. But the point to sort of remember here is you're just running two programs on one computer. OpenSim, which is sort of controlling things, under the hood, and then Firestorm, which is the visuals that you log into and you're able to do all your work in. Okay, so we're going to get to another setup. It's very similar to what you just saw. However, we're adding one more program to the mix, and that's MySQL. MySQL is a database program. We didn't have it in this previous example because when you first run OpenSim out of the box, it kind of just comes ready to go using a back-end database called SQLite. And it's great because it's really fast in terms of getting set up, but it's not very fast in terms of performance. And so at some point, if we want to do anything serious, we have to replace that with MySQL. So you're going to go out and we're going to install another program called MySQL. And it's kind of, you won't even see this logo when you're running it. It runs in the background invisibly. Only OpenSim will be communicating with MySQL. And everything else is the same. Once again, we're doing everything on that one computer, and we have the Firestorm viewer running to give us our visuals. Now at some point we're going to change this around a little. Now here we have a slightly different setup. We have two computers, one here on the left, and once again the computers are down underneath, and we got another one on the right. And on this computer on the left, we're just running OpenSim. So you see that DOS-like window with a bunch of text. That is the nuts and bolts. This thing is what we call the server, and now it's called the server machine because this machine is doing nothing else except for hosting our OpenSim. In fact, this machine, you can stick it in a closet somewhere. You may not even interact with it very much if you leave it running all the time. And then you use another machine in order to run Firestorm. And here you can see we're running Firestorm and we're able to see the visuals. But down here I've indicated that these two computers are talking to each other. And they'll be talking to each other via your local area network, most likely when we first start out. So as long as the two computers are plugged into your network, your little local network for your school or whatever organization you have, and that they're able to see each other, then you can run in this setup where OpenSim is on one machine and Firestorm and your users are on another. Okay, so why would we want to separate these duties? Why would we actually want two different machines to run OpenSim and Firestorm when we saw previously that it runs just fine on one machine? Well, that's because at some point you're probably going to want multiple users. And I've demonstrated this here. In the center, we have a machine, and all it's running is our OpenSim. And instead of one computer running Firestorm to get into our virtual world. Now we have two. So these are two different users, basically two players entering into this one world. And these two users can see each other. They both have their own avatars. They're both going to be able to bump into each other, interact with each other. If you have voice turned on, you can talk to each other. They're having their separate experiences, but they're sharing it in one OpenSim, one instance of OpenSim. And once again, this center machine, you might have it put in a closet somewhere, or it could be on a desk somewhere, but you're typically not going to sit down at it and use it because all it's doing is running as a server. Meanwhile, your client machines are running Firestorm to communicate with it. Okay, and so that brings us to the last configuration. Right here, we just have the server. This all it's doing is running OpenSim. Now, this particular machine, the way I have it set up, could be in your office or your closet, or this might be located in a host, some kind of service provider that you work with for your organization, or a third party that you may pay for. But the reason why this setup is different is now we're talking to, I've got a little cloud here to indicate the internet. So that server is basically just sitting out on the internet somewhere. Just as any server that might host a web page would be out there sitting on the internet. And now users, I put a little wall here to indicate that we're at a different location, but now we've got lots of different users. Each of them are all running Firestorm, and they're all connecting to that cloud, which represents the internet. And each one of these desks, I have them all sort of jammed up against each other, but they could be located anywhere in the country, because now the entire process for your OpenSim server is now spread out across the internet, so they could be located in another country for all you know. And they're all talking back to that one server machine. Okay, so that is the broad overview of how we might set up. The things to remember is that vMax uses two very important programs: OpenSim to run the back-end server, and Firestorm in order to get the visuals. And there's a third program called MySQL, which helps the back-end do its job more efficiently. And in the next couple of videos, we're going to learn how to set all of that up. So get ready for that.